Alright, in today's video, I want to talk about my favorite build in Hunstmen, which is the Wildfire Bingo. I've been using this build religiously since launch, and if you've watched my content before, you might have seen this build or started using it based on an old video I made, and today we're going to be doing an updated version of the bingo, as a decent amount has changed, but I also want to make an updated video for the new players joining us with mobile release, or even if you're new on PC, and introducing the mechanics from a base level to an advanced level, so you understand the concepts of this build, what the pieces are that you need, exactly how to acquire things most importantly. So this isn't just going to be a guide about the build and what you need, it's going to be how to get it to build as well, which I think is very important as we're jumping into a massive release where a lot of new players are joining us. So without further ado, we can jump into what the build itself is at a fundamental level. It's a sniper build that utilizes the bingo blueprint. So if you go to your blueprints tab and then you go to the AWS section, it's going to be the legendary bingo blueprint. Now it'll say bingo for you. For me, it has a different name because I have a name tag on it. There are name tags and you can customize your weapon names. I'll leave that in a different video. I really want to cover customization in its own video and all the different free stuff you can get. Coming back from being sidetracked, because I do that quite well, again, the whole sort of build fundamentally works around this weapon. This is the key component that you're going to need to make the build work. Alongside that, our main offhand is going to be the Wildfire. Now this is called the Wildfire, not the Hamaiatua. That is just a name that I've given it as a name tag. So these two weapons harmonize together to create what I like to call the bingo Wildfire build. It is a really, really good build. It's still one of the top performers when it comes to PvE and PvP. We're going to have both builds in this video. PvP is going to have a little bit shorter of a section, as I feel like if you're jumping into PvP, you might be a little bit more experienced with things. And I'm also going to have two links in the description where you can quickly reference the builds themselves and just see what you need instantly. But this video is going to be really in depth for the people that want to learn the build straight up. So to start off with, how do you acquire these two weapons? Because again, at a base level, I want to be as I guess new player friendly in this video. So if you're experienced, you might want to skip around to certain sections in the video, and that's understandable. But as a new player, I want to go over everything, how to get things, for example. So to start off with, you're going to need some Starcrom. Starcrom is one of the main progression currencies you can earn in the game, and you'll be able to see it in your inventory by pressing escape or I. You'll see how much Starcrom you have in the top right, and you can use that at the wish machine to get blueprints. So to start off with, I guess we can quickly say how to get Starcrom, and that's from the Stellar Stairway. So going into the menu screen, whether you're on mobile or PC, you hit the Stellar Stairway banner. This is effectively just a way to reward you and give you Starcrom, that in-game currency, by simply playing the game. You can do quite literally anything to progress the stairway. If you've been playing for the last week since release, you might already be quite well into the Stellar Stairway itself. So there are optimal ways to boost, I guess, the progression of the Stellar Stairway. It resets every month, so you can get more of the currency, but at a base level, you can just do whatever you want. And then again, there are optimal ways. I'm sure people have already got videos on that for you to watch. But next is how to use that currency to get the weapons you want. So you're going to first off build a wish machine. A wish machine will be found in your facilities tab in the function and facility, and you'll need to unlock that in the memetics tree. This is where you use your research points, which you'll get from leveling up and doing your journey challenges and whatnot. The tutorial probably would have led you through this, but you can also just go to the search bar on the bottom left and search up the wish machine, and it's going to actually filter to the unlock in the tree. This is a really cool feature. It saves you having to scroll through and look through the trees, and then you can unlock that recipe right there. Plant it down, and now you can go up to it and you can press the blueprint shop. The blueprint shop is a way where you can get any weapon you want instantly without RNG, so you can try different builds. So for example, we're going to go to the sniper tab and pick up the Bullseye Bingo. This is again the critical piece of this entire kit. And then the sidearm in the pistol tab is going to be the Wildfire. Now you have both weapons. Now when it comes to melee, I do quickly want to mention that there are a couple optimal melee weapons you can use, but ultimately you can use whatever you like. It doesn't really matter, and we will speak about min-maxing later on, but I just want to talk about the base level aspects of the build to start off with. So, now that we have both of our weapons, we have the blueprints unlocked. If you're new to the game, they'll be 1 stars. If you're experienced, they'll be, 6 star, 5 star, whatever. You can now go to your crafting bench and your territory, your base, and then you can craft them. Craft them at the relevant tier you're at progression-wise. If you're at in-game, which is phase 2 in a lot of scenarios, you will be able to craft the tier 5 version with the appropriate materials, and then you will be able to equip them. Next, we want to talk about the armor, and we're going to do this in a structured way where I go from blueprints like armor and weapons to the mods in them and how to get the mods, and then from there we can get into the more nitty-gritty. So next up is the armor. This is the PvE build that I use pretty much 99% of the time. There are other builds, and I'm going to quickly come out and say that this might not be the best Giga Ultimate Bingo build, but it's my bingo build that has been pretty flawless at hitting really high damage numbers for the longest time now, and is, in my opinion, a fantastic build. My version of it. Other versions, I'm sure they're fantastic as well, and if you want to look into them, you can. But my version utilizes set bonuses from a set called the Renegade, and we use a couple single pieces as well, such as the heavy duty mask, which is going to give us a 1-piece set bonus of 10% more HP. So with armor blueprints in Once Human, they all have set bonuses depending on how many pieces you have equipped from a set, and you can mix and match to create a hypothetical or theory craft a good build. So I always use the 3-piece Renegade. It basically gives you a bunch more weak spot damage, and in a base level we can talk about what these perks are. Weak spot is quite literally just equal to headshot damage, right? So weak spot is a headshot. It'll be red damage numbers when you hit a target, and we will showcase that in combo rotations later on. But at a base level, that's all you need to know is weak spot damage is going to give you more headshot damage, in turn basically increasing your damage. Then you get more advanced perks that utilize that weak spot benefit. So as you can see on screen, the 3-piece set bonus of the Renegade is going to give us something called Archer's Focus, or a stack of Archer's Focus, increasing our weak spot damage by 4% up to 10 stacks. So if we hit an enemy in the head or the weak spot, some bosses have a weak spot which aren't a headshot, right? That is why it's called a weak spot instead of a headshot area. It's effectively, it is a weak spot area, but the way to look at it is if there's a weak spot on an enemy, that's where you want to hit with this kind of build. So we have Archer's Focus, and we can hit that enemy up to 10 times in the same spot with a stackable bonus, and that is weak spot damage increased by 4%. So that stacks up to 10 times, giving us a total effect of 40% more weak spot damage on that enemy. Now if you switch enemies though, at the caveat here, it is going to half those stacks. So this is why this is one of the best boss killer builds in the game. Now for general PvE, like let's say killing trash mobs or killing silos or smashing through silos or dungeons, it's still going to be fantastic, but you're not always going to be having a lot of Archer's Focus stacks, and that's completely fine. I personally don't really see the point in building towards adds or additionals, which are just your trash mobs. No point to build an entire kit around them when they're already such low HP. I would rather focus on maxing out my build and output for bosses, as that's where damage matters the most, especially if you're speedrunning and mod farming, and we will get onto that later. So we're running that 3-piece Renegade set bonus. The way the armor works in Once Human is you have 6 different slots that you can play around with in any way. So the way I've done it is I have the Renegade hood, the Renegade jacket, and the Renegade pants. You don't have to exactly have it in this order. You could have the Renegade hood or the Renegade mask with the Renegade gloves, and then the other two, the top and the pants, are a different set bonus or a different set. So you can do it in any order, with one big caveat that the boots are the key armor. Now this is a whole aspect in itself, is key armor. Key armor is effectively a 1-piece set bonus that is going to effectively create a unique build. In our case, for the bingo build here today, we're using something called the Old Hunstman boots. The Old Hunstman boots, after triggering Bullseye, which is the unique effect of our bingo sniper rifle, which is the baseline of this build, which we will come back to after talking about the boots, we are able to effectively hit a weak spot even if it's not a weak spot after marking a target. That sounds a little bit confusing, but fundamentally our sniper, the bingo that I mentioned at the start of the video, is going to give us an effect called a marking or a mark, or called the bullseye in like a better terms, where it's going to put a glowing outline on the enemy we hit. What this means is the enemy has now become marked. You can see where they are even through walls, effectively a free ESP, which is a really cool ability to have on this kit or on this build. And on top of that, marking that target in conjunction with these unique old Hunstmen boots is going to give us extra weak spot damage and allow us to hit a weak spot even if we don't actually hit that enemy's weak spot. So now you can see why this build and why these two pairings become very good and very strong, is we can basically, in short, hit a headshot without even hitting a headshot. This is fantastic for both PvE and PvP, being the meta in PvP for almost a full year now, and same goes for PvE, being one of the top boss melter builds in the game. So with that said, we now have the old Hunstmen boots, which also, I quickly want to mention, all of these armor blueprints that I'm talking about, just like the weapon blueprints, can be purchased from the blueprint shop. So you can go to the blueprint shop, you can go to the sniper rifle, sorry, you can scroll down further on the left, on PC or mobile, you can pick up the Renegade set, any 3 pieces you want, except to remember, we can't do the shoes. We have to get 3 pieces of Renegade, that's not the shoes. Then for the Bastille, this is the last piece set bonus we have on our armor. So I mentioned the heavy duty mask. The heavy duty mask you might already have, because when you're doing your scenario for the first time, if you're a new player, when you've cleared a POI, I can't remember exactly which POI, you would have gotten the blueprint for agent set, or heavy set, sorry, the heavy set, which is fully free. You don't need any Starcrom in-game currency for that. You would have just unlocked the blueprint, which is really nice. So you'll have that heavy set without even needing to go to the wish machine. But that Bastille set, which is the last piece set bonus we have, is going to give us another 1-piece perk bonus of just more weapon damage when we are above a 70% HP threshold. This is, in my opinion, one of the best elements of the, I guess, the 1-piece set bonus here, the Bastille gloves. We're just getting more damage, right? So some of the perks are pretty, like, word for word what they do, and you can simply understand it just by looking through. And there's other concoctions you can come up with. Again, as I've said, this is my version of the bingo build. I know there's a bunch of other ones out there, and it is entirely up to you to, I guess, theory craft things you might want to do. But at a fundamental level, the 2 most crucial pieces of this entire build is the bingo sniper itself and the old Hunstmen boots. Without these 2, you don't have the bingo build. But these other pieces can be, I guess, exchanged for different things to suit your playstyle. With that said, in order of priority, and this is the, I guess, acquisition rate I would recommend, is get the sniper first and get the boots second. Once you've done that, you can prio in any order you like. I'll probably go for the Wildfire next, and then the Renegade set, and then I would get Bastille gloves and heavy duty mask last. Well, you should already have the heavy duty mask, but in order of acquisition, Bastille gloves can probably be your last piece you get, as they are the least important. So in that order, we've covered the acquisition of the blueprints, what they do, and how they work together and synergize. We've left out the melee weapon here, and that's mainly because it's not important. We will cover the long axe when it comes to combos. That, just like anything else, is a blueprint you will have gotten from a point of interest in the open world, and you should already have it if you've played through a lot of a scenario. If you haven't, you can also just get it from the wish machine as well. So now that we've covered all of the core aspects here, the weapons and the armor, gear pieces and how to get them, we can jump onto the mods or modifications on them. So mods, much like other games, are effectively an item you can attach to a gear piece that's going to give it extra stats and performance in both PvE and PvP. These are sort of one of the crucial aspects that defines a build and makes them really strong. This is also where a lot of the in-game progression systems come in when you're farming out really good mods. So you have different rarities, of course the legendary being the best, and I will also of course talk about where to get these, But at the end of the day, when you're farming out mods, it is an RNG fest. This is where you're going to be spending a lot of your time min-maxing and optimizing mods to get good ones, such as a triple legendary here. And these have different stats on them, and I will be talking about the stats you want to look out for my build, for my bingo build, if you want to copy them. And in order of recommendation, we can jump onto the gear. So to start off with, I'm going to go to my sniper simply by clicking on it if you're on PC, or mobile tapping on it. You'll be able to see what mod I have equipped in the bingo itself, which I have a mod called Vulnerability Amplifier. What this does is it adds vulnerability by 8% to the enemy that I have applied Bullseye to. So if you remember previously, we had added the Bullseye effect from our sniper to the enemy. So we can quickly just cover that again. The weapon features of the bingo: 70% chance to trigger the bullseye on a weak spot hit. On top of that, if you switch to your sidearm and back to your sniper, you get a guaranteed bullseye hit, and that's refreshable. So you can insta swap back and forth and keep reprocking that bullseye effect on a new enemy or the same enemy if it's ran out. So there's upkeep on bullseye itself. You also get more damage on a weak spot upon killing or hitting that weak spot. So there's also just some more damage modifiers in there. Don't need to worry about that, because those damage modifiers are going to proc when using the weapon anyways. So back to the mod, vulnerability 8% on a bullseye target. What does vulnerability mean? Vulnerability basically just means more damage. It's effectively a baseline multiplier that is just going to effectively yield more damage. That's all you really need to know at a fundamental level. Is this is one of the best bullseye core effects. Now, if you're wondering how do I get my hands on this mod, you would get it from the spider boss. I keep forgetting the name. It's called Araxium or Aracasium or whatever. And that it comes from the alpha monolith on the Prism Clash servers. But if you're on Manibus or Evolution's Cool, that mod actually comes from the other silo or the other side of the map, because the map restructures depending on the scenario you're playing. So there's a monolith here, and that's where you will locate the spider boss. You've probably already done it if you're working your way through the main story quest, and that'll be located there. That's where the spider boss will be. But if you're on Prison vs Clash, the PvP scenario, you will find the spider boss all the way over on the far left instead of the far right. As you can see, challenge rewards are bullseye, so you can actually click on it here and scroll down. It's going to give us a random bullseye mod. This is where the farming comes in, and you're going to be rerunning this spider boss as many times until you get the mod, or a good version of the mod rather. So jumping back at it, let's say you've farmed the spider boss, you've got a vulnerability amplifier, you've got the core effect that you're looking for, in this case the vulnerability. Then you want to look for attribute effects. Attribute effects are bonus stats on top of the core mod effect. In our case, we're looking out for weak spot and weapon damage as our primary to focus. So I'm going to have it on screen here in order of priority. This is what I recommend you want to look out for in stats. Now, this is going to take a lot of min-maxing. Even myself, with a year of playtime or a year of experience on this game, as I started playing around, I don't know, I can't remember, start of 2024 when CBT3 was going on. It's been longer than a year, hasn't it? That there are certain stats you want to look out for and prioritize, and they can be challenging to come by. I always start off with weak spot damage. As we've mentioned at the start of the video, weak spot damage is simply just increased headshot damage. This is a no-brainer. It's just one of the best attribute effects you can get. Second to that is weapon damage. This is also just another, it says what it does, right? It's weapon damage. It's more weapon damage. And then third substat to prioritize, this is a PvE recommendation, is plus Great Ones damage, which I can probably showcase on one of my other mods here. Is, yeah, so on this vulnerability amplifier, you can see that it has damage against Great Ones plus 3.6%. On top of not only getting these attribute effects, they also have rarities. So this is where another part of the RNG comes in, is you need to get the stats you want, you need to get the attribute effects you want, you need to get the core effect you want, and then you need to get good rarities on the attribute effects themselves. So we're quickly going to divert from talking about the rest of the mods in the kit to talk about mods and upgrading their substats, because you're not left totally out of control. That's where a system called mod conversion and mod upgrading comes in. So let's say we get a really good mod and it's got some nice stats on it. For example, let's say this one. Let's say we're going for crit damage. We're not. We want to be going for weak spot damage on our build, but let's say we're going for crit damage. In your mods tab, you can right click or tap on that mod if you're on mobile, and you can spend some resources to upgrade that mod's rarities. So if I hit this upgrade button, it's going to upgrade one of the attributes at random from any tier. So this is another RNG aspect here, and where a lot of the grinding comes in. So as you can see, I've upgraded this mod a couple times, and we managed to get a gold great ones. Gold is the highest rarity, and it takes 5 tiers to get to. Gray, green, blue, purple, legendary. And you can only upgrade a mod a max of 5 times. This is important because there are certain mods that will come with higher default rarities than others. For example, this mod here that's unupgraded has a purple and 2 green attributes with 1 gray by default unupgraded. Meanwhile, this Elemental Havoc, which is a completely different mod, ignore what the mod does, comes with 3 gray attributes by default and 1 purple, meaning by default this mod is better and would be more worthwhile upgrading than this other one that has lower tier baseline attributes. What this means at a fundamental level is you want to look out for mods that not only have the core effects you want, the attribute effects you want, they also have good baseline rarities. I recommend upgrading mods that have at least 2 blue, 1 purple, and 1 gray. Now, at an early game stage, you can just run any mod that at least meets your core effect. But as you start to grind and get through more towards endgame and farming out silos and dungeons, that's where you want to look out for those mods that have higher baseline attributes, as when you go to upgrade those mods, you have better chances at getting higher stats than the other one. So for example, this Life Force boost here is actually really good. It's got 3 legendary stats, 2 of them being damage multipliers. Ideally, you would want 3 damage multipliers, that weak spot weapon damage, and great ones, Holy Trinity for PvE is what I like to call it. It's going to be quite a hard mod to obtain. It's going to be a very grindy aspect, and again, it's going to be one of those main things that you are effectively progressing with in min-maxing. Min-maxing is a term where you're basically chasing after the best possible solution, even though it might not be achievable. So, with that said, we've now covered what mod upgrading does. What about mod converting? Now, I'm going to sidetrack you here and throw you a bit of a curveball. I have an entire video breaking down mod conversion, but I don't even want you to touch mod conversion in this video if you're a new player. If you're an experienced player and you're watching this and you're breezing through it, you already know most of the stuff I'm talking about. Just move on. You already know what you're doing. But if you're a new player, I don't want you to worry about mod conversion yet. This is a whole subsystem for in-game that you will come about when the time is right. When you're getting to that stage where you're min-maxing your mods really well, by default you already have somewhat of an understanding of the system. But if you want a proper breakdown, I have a full video dedicated to that I will leave linked in the description. So, bringing ourselves back from talking about how mods work and how to get them and what to look out for, we can go to the mod on our bingo again, and we can talk about what attributes we were looking out for. So at a baseline, we've discussed that we need the core effect we want being vulnerability amplifier, weak spot damage being our priority on our attribute effect, our second priority being weapon damage, and our third priority being great ones damage. Now for the fourth attribute effect, because you get 4 attribute bonus effects on every mod, it can be anything, but ideally it would be normal enemies or elite enemies. Now that's a very hard mod to roll. As you can see, I don't even have mods of that caliber on my account, but that's the min-maxing idea you would go for. Your priority attributes and then your less priority attributes. So now that we've covered vulnerability amplifier for the bingo, we can talk about the bingo's accessories. Accessories are the attachments of a weapon. These grant significant benefits to the weapon, such as stability, accuracy, range, and reload speed, all yielding great benefits, as I said. So stability reduces the recoil, accuracy reduces the over-the-shoulder bloom spread, range increases the overall bullet damage, and well, reload speed increases the reload speed. And you also get to see the baseline stats up here influenced by your mods. So for example, my damage is 3562 up here, and that takes into consideration my bonus weapon damage mods that I have. So with that said, where do you get accessories? They say where they actually come from with a little hint. So when you go to the accessory tab and you tap on the accessory and then you tap on it again, so this one, the range compensator, for example, comes from Ember Strand, which is in the Way of Winter scenario. Now, if you want more specifics, I'm going to leave an atlas in the description that's going to give you the exact locations of where to find attachments. It's by Doomrus. He's another creator and does really good build guide videos. Slightly more in-game related if you know more about the game and you're willing to jump straight into it. He covers and makes really good spreadsheets as well that exactly tell you where to get things. And I'm going to lead you guys over to that video and that spreadsheet if you want to find attachment locations. For this video, we want to focus more on the introduction to the build itself, and if you want to learn how to acquire these attachments, I will leave that in the description. Now for the ammo, this is progression based. I wouldn't worry about this. Even for me, I generally just use tungsten ammo, which is tier 5 ammo. You will learn how to craft that by simply playing the game and progressing as you normally would through the tiers and the phases. At a baseline, at an in-game level, however, and we'll talk about this way later on when it comes to ability rotations, is the in-game ammo, which is Smart AP, Suppression, and Illusion. These three ammo types I don't want to talk about right now to confuse you even more. I just want to jump back into the mod section. So we've covered the accessories in the mod of the bingo. What about our wildfire, which is our sidearm and is not to be taken lightly? This thing is also a powerhouse that can see upwards of numbers to 40k depending on the enemies you're fighting. So not only is your bingo sniper itself a fantastic weapon, so is the wildfire. And that's why I want to talk about this weapon next, which also uses a very similar mod to our bingo, which is the vulnerability amplifier. You also want to look out for the exact same attributes, not the ones that I'm showing in this particular screen. I was just trialing something. Prioring that weak spot damage, weapon damage, and great ones damage bonus, the holy trinity, with a fourth either elite ones or normal enemies to top it off. Now, the accessories on the deagle I tend to focus for range and stability because the deagle can have a lot of recoil. And again, if you want to know the exact locations of the attachments, I will leave that in the description. So, we're running the tactical suppressor, which gives us a bunch of range at the cost of mobility. Mobility is a stat that you can't actually increase that much, but you can lose a lot of. Mobility is effectively the, I guess, speed at which you move around. It's generally just word for word, basically, right? So minus mobility, but we get a bunch of range plus 14 range, which is actually quite a significant damage bonus. We also lose a little bit of stability with the tactical suppressor, but that is completely fine. On top of that, we have the optic suppressor, and again, if you want the locations, that will be in the description. The compact reflex sight gives us a bunch of stability back, which is again going to reduce that recoil that we lost out on and give us some more, which is pretty nice. It also increases our aim speed, which is both for over the shoulder and ADS. On the tactics, I actually run the small infrared, which again gives us more stability, reducing that overall recoil, again making our gun more of a laser. Now, you could also, if you want to, go for the integrated laser sight, which gives you accuracy. Now, accuracy, again, is the spread of the weapon and over-the-shoulder aiming. I know a lot of people do go for this, but just keep in mind, if you decide to run the integrated laser, you're going to have a lot more recoil than running the small infrared, which is why a lot of people run this, especially in PvP, to have a visual clarity over what you're shooting at. Now for the magazine, you just run the extended pistol mag. You really don't need to look into this one too much. More bullets in your magazine is a win-win. You get to shoot for longer without worrying about reloading. That said, you do lose a lot of stability with it, but I think it is a worthwhile trade-off. On the ammo, very similar to the sniper, you will just progress through the tiers as you're leveling up from steel to tungsten, etc. But at the very end game, we will talk about it later, you will go through penetration, suppression, smart, and illusion, but I don't want to talk about that too much right now until we get to that in-game section of the video. So we've covered the mods and the accessories for the Wildfire. Now we can jump on to the armor. The armor, it gets a little bit more complex. As we've covered, we're using the 3-piece Renegade, the heavy duty, the 1-piece Bastille, and the key to the whole thing, as it's labeled, the key armor, the old Huntsman boots that really make the build come to life. Again, getting headshots without even hitting the headshot, incredible perk to have, game changing, makes this build so strong. Has made this build for so strong as long as it has. So we're going to jump onto the mods in chronological order on my screen from left to right, just to simplify it for you guys, and I'll also showcase exactly where you can find these mods and where to farm them out. So on our top, or on our head rather, I run Precise Strike. Now there are other variations to this build where people might run a different mod. This is my build and this is my take on it. Again, running the Precise Strike, it's going to give us a scaling weak spot damage increase, much like a lot of our other perks do, except this one is going to give us a increasing weak spot damage multiplier only on hitting the weak spot. So even though our old Huntsman boots might be fantastic for getting headshots without hitting the headshot, there's still a reason to aim for the headshot or weak spot whenever you can. So up to 3 times, we're going to get a stack of 12% weak spot bonus. So that's up to 36% more weak spot damage upon hitting a weak spot 3 times. That'll last for 3 seconds, but that'll turn over as long as you keep hitting the weak spot, and you can have a lot of uptime on that. On the attribute effects, as we've covered before, we always want to focus that holy trinity of weak spot, weapon damage, great ones, with the 4th ideally being elite or normal enemies. This mod, by the way, the Precise Strike, comes from the Silo Alpha. Now, I quickly want to mention that some silos are bugged with their visual icons, so it says that Silo Alpha on Prison vs Clash drops top mods. It does not. It drops the head mods. So I really want to keep that in there, and that just throw that in there as a bonus. There are some visual bugs on the map, but for the most part, if you're ever curious where to get a mod from if you're on a different scenario, hover over the silos and it should tell you hopefully the correct location. So Silo Sigma drops glove mods, while Silo EX1 drops the mask mods. This is universal for Evolution's Cool, Manibus, and Prison vs Clash. Way of Winter is different though, as that is in a different part of the map. Simply hover over the silos if you're playing Way of Winter and it should tell you the mod that it drops. And last but not least, we have the top mod. Sorry, we've got a few more sizes. We've got the head mod, which comes from Theta, and that's actually the top mod. So that's where the visual bug is here. Silo Theta actually drops top mods, while Silo Alpha actually drops head mods. So that's just a bit of a mishap by the developers there. And Silo PSI at the top here, this drops your pants mods. I'm just going to get these out of the way now so you know exactly where they are. And just above Greywater Camp, that is where you'll get your shoe mods. Now, I actually think I forgot to mention it, or might not have. No, I did mention it. The bingo mods do come from Araxium. I did mention that. So that is pretty much where you get all of your mods. You get them from dungeons and monoliths. So monoliths will drop your mod types. Silos will drop your armor types. It's that simple. And if you want to know the exact one where you get something, then just hover over it, and it should give you hopefully the correct reward details, other than that one error between the Alpha and Theta. So, jumping back onto it, we've talked about where the Precise Strike comes from, and again, looking out for the Holy Trinity. Jumping onto our mask mod, these are more build specific mods. In our case, for my bingo build, I run Most Wanted. Most Wanted is a perk or a core effect that every time we mark an enemy, we get a plus 5% attack bonus for 8 seconds. That can stack up to 3 times for a total of 15% attack. Now, if you're wondering what attack is, it is much like vulnerability on our weapon mod. It simply gives us more damage, is all you really need to know. So it's a good mod to have, right? Most Wanted, and again, looking out for the Holy Trinity. Weak spot, weapon damage, great ones. Fourth, ideally being normal enemies or elite enemies. So that is a nice easy one to worry about there. And again, I can quickly jump over it again in case you weren't here. EX1, that is where you're going to get your mask mods from. So we'll jump straight onto the top here, and again going from left to right, we'll cover 3 then 3. The top mod, this gets a little bit more interesting, but I'm just going to give you a quick easy recommendation of a life force boost. The life force boost is literally what it says it does. It just gives you 12% more HP. Nice survivability, makes it easy, and they're also pretty easy to get. They actually used to be really hard to get, but now they've made it way easier. And that's where mod conversion comes, and we'll get onto that in a second. So again, looking out for those Holy Trinity attribute effects of weak spot, great ones, and weapon damage. Now, I don't have that myself, and that's ideally what you would want to look for. But, you know, you can settle for 2 perkers or 1 perkers, as I call them. So you can, if you're at an early game level, just settle for weak spot. If that's all you have currently until you get a better mod, that is completely fine. And, you know, make small improvements. You know, I would at a baseline just get at least a 1 to 2 perker for every mod before you start farming out 1 mod to be a 3 perker, right? Just go around all of the different silos and make small improvements at each level, at a batch level, right? Don't focus 1 mod when you should be focusing all your mods at, I guess, equal time spent farming each mod, if that makes sense. I wouldn't priority one thing over another. So now that we've covered the top mod, the mask mod, the head mod, we can cover the glove mod, which I use weak spot usually, but you can also use munitions. So I quickly want to jump in here before I talk about the mod itself. There's 2 different options you can run. I'm going to recommend here. Either weak spot damage bonus, which is quite literally by the word, gives you more weak spot damage by 25%, or you can run munitions amplifier, which just gives you 15% more weapon damage. Now, why I say you can run either one is ultimately whichever mod is better comes down to the one you have the better attribute effects on. So the glove mods themselves drop from Silo, where is it? Silo Sigma down here to the far left of Deadsville. That's where you're going to get your glove mods. And why I recommend running whichever one you get better attribute effects on is because that's complete RNG. So ultimately, again, whichever one you get better attribute effects on is what you want to run. If you have better attributes on the weak spot damage bonus, run that one. If you have better attributes on the munitions, run that one. And ultimately, if you're min-max, let's say hypothetically, your attribute effects were the exact same, which one would you run? You would run weapon damage, as we've already got a lot of baseline weak spot damage bonuses. And what I mean by that is at a more technical level, when I press C, or if you tap down the bottom left if you're on mobile, you'll get the details of your build stats. So for example, we have, I guess I need to pull out my weapon to show this, it's just a little bug with the game. And I go back to my gear tab, you can see that I have 184 weak spot damage, but only 104 weapon damage bonus. So all of our different sources giving us weak spot damage bonuses through our attributes and our weapon damage bonuses, we are way shorter or way less on our weapon damage, which means we want to sort of bump up our weapon damage more to sort of equalize it. And that's why a lot of people recommend running munitions amplifier, and at a base level, hypothetically speaking, if you had the exact same attributes between a munitions and a weak spot boost, you would go with the munitions amplifier. But keep in mind, whatever one you have better attribute effects on is actually going to do more damage. So if I have a holy trinity of weak spot, weapon damage, and great ones on a weak spot boost, I would use that over a munitions amplifier that only had 2 of those attributes. So keep that in mind and keep that in the back of your head, that, you know, whichever one is better is based on the attributes for the gloves. Jumping onto the boots here, for the boots, I always run Covered Advance. Covered Advance is pretty word for word on what it does. Taking no damage within 4 seconds will grant you a 20% weapon damage boost for 30 seconds. Pretty self-explanatory, and it's not only that, it's a very easy to have upkeep on. Simply taking no damage for 4 seconds, you get a bunch of damage, and that's very easy to do, especially as a ranged sniper class. A lot of the time you will be in situations where you don't need to worry about taking damage at all, which allows you to have this pretty much be permanently uptime. So this is one of those perks where you get good at the build, you should never have downtime on this core effect. It should always be up regardless, no matter what. Again, for the attribute effects, of course, going for the Holy Trinity, weak spot, weapon damage, and great ones being your priority. And then for the fourth there, you of course either want elite or normal. Jumping onto the pants, we want unstoppable precision. Unstoppable precision is a mod that's going to give you more damage the further away you are from our target, which obviously makes sense as a sniper, right? We're going to be generally playing a little bit further away, so we can utilize this perk to give us a bunch more weak spot damage. So here's the perk Core Effect suggests: more weak spot damage when a bullet hits a target more than 20 meters away. And further to that, it's got an extra effect where every additional meter away, you get another 1% up to 20%, which means if you are 40 meters away from a target, you get 40% more weak spot damage. Now, some of this doesn't actually increase your damage, it more negates something called damage drop-off. Damage drop-off is quite a big thing in Once Human, and especially with snipers, and especially with the Wildfire pistol, you will notice your damage tapering off at long distance. This mod aims to sort of bring that back, dial that back, so you don't have as much of a damage drop-off, which makes sense for a sniper. If you're playing a lot with your sidearm, which is the Wildfire, you actually might even want to try the 3 strikes mod, which in my opinion isn't that great, but it is another option. I of course recommend just sticking it out with unstoppable precision, as it is going to be way more useful for the bingo itself, which I recommend mainly using for this build. That's not to say the Wildfire isn't to go unnoticed. It's a fantastic weapon that you can also use. And again, aiming for the Holy Trinity as always. I don't really need to mention it again. You guys, I'm sure by now, know what those attribute effects are you want to focus. So now that we've covered all of the armor and all of the mods, where to get them, both the weapons as well, their accessories and mods, we can talk about a little bit more of a technical detail that you can worry about more towards the end game, which on the weapons is calibrations. Calibrations are something you will get upon scrapping weapons you find in the open world. Now, I've got a bunch of my base here that I can show you guys in these chests, but effectively a calibration blueprint is again something you will get upon scrapping a weapon you find in the open world. If you open a gear crate or a weapon crate, there's a high chance you'll get a sort of mid-tier weapon, maybe a +4 calibrated tier 4 or 5 weapon. You'll take that to your recycling bench and you'll get a calibration BP out of that. And there is a bunch of different ones. There's hundreds of different calibration blueprints you can get. And ideally the one you want to look out for, which is quite RNG heavy for the bingo, is a rapid style weak spot damage bonus. So what this means is there's 2 effectively bonuses of weak spot damage. So these can vary in strength between a minimum of 7.2 and 10.8%, as you can see on screen, and then it has a unique effect on top of that called the rapid shot style. The rapid shot style is what makes bingo work like magic. This is one of my favorite parts of the build. A lot of people think this is unintended, but I can confirm to you today that rapid shot style is intended. It is part of the game now and will never go away. It is essential to the bingo sniper kits, and it's what makes the playstyle, in my opinion, so unique and so enjoyable to play. So as you can see by reading it, it increases our bolt pilling speed by 50%, reload speed by 50%, but we lose a little bit of attack. Remember I mentioned that attack is just more damage, so we have to sacrifice a little bit of damage for a more enjoyable sniping experience. And what I mean by that is rapid shot style has a very unique effect. But first, I want to talk about what do you do with that calibration. You're probably wondering, oh, I have this rapid shot style calibration that I looted and I got from scrapping an old weapon on my disassembly bench. How do I now apply that to my weapon? You'll go up to your advanced gear bench, you'll go to calibration, you'll click your sniper, and then on the bottom or in the middle here, you'll see replace. If you're on mobile PC, you'll just tap it, and then you'll be able to pick the calibration blueprint from your backpack. Now, it is important to mention, and this is something I want to sort of bring up as a nitty detail, you have to have that calibration blueprint in your backpack for it to show up on the screen here. This is something I hope the developers change soon, because it can be kind of annoying when you start to have a massive build-up of calibration blueprints. Especially when you're at the in-game grinding level, you're going to be having hundreds of different blueprints, and browsing through them and finding where you put certain ones can be a little bit tedious. But just keep in mind, if you have a best in slot one, it might be a little bit easier to keep it in your backpack. And then you'll simply click on it, it'll place it on replace attributes, and as we said, it'll lock in those new attributes on your sniper and make it brand spanking new with a rapid shot style. Now, why does rapid shot style make so much difference? That's what I want to get onto next. Rapid shot style is effectively a calibration blueprint that allows us to turn our sniper into effectively a semi-automatic DMR, effectively, which is quite fun. So to start off with, when I shoot my bingo, as you can see on screen here, it's fast, but it's kind of slow, right? There's a very special technique you can do to make the bingo shoot faster than you can by just pulling the trigger. Spamming A and D, or if you're on mobile, spamming your left joystick to the right and left, and doing a strafing technique. When you get this down really fast, you're going to be able to shoot your sniper really fast. Faster than just shooting it normally. Watch this. You can already see how much faster that is, right? And simply by spamming that joystick on, if you're on mobile, or if you're on PC, spamming A and D to create a strafing motion, you can shoot the sniper very fast. And this is the technique that when you get really good at it, makes the build feel extremely fluid and feel exceptional and makes it fun. To start off with, I'll quickly want to also showcase that you can do this when ADSing as well. Simply by doing the same method, you can strafe while you're in your scope and shoot just as fast. So you can do it while in over the shoulder aiming, or you can do it while you're in ADS as well. And that is what that rapid style blueprint, calibration blueprint does. That's the whole aim of it, to increase that bolt pulling speed, to make that effectively animation cancel is, I guess, the technical term for it. You're animation canceling the bolt pull by doing a strafing rhythm, which is really cool. I absolutely love that. I think it's fantastic. So, with that said, we can now jump on to the calibration for the Deagle, as this also has a calibration that you want to apply to it. This one, we're using a calibration called Precision Style. Again, getting calibration blueprints are complete RNG. You have to get lucky by looting a weapon that has it on it. And that's sort of the tedious part. Another part of that in-game progression, looking out for a calibration that's good, that you want. A lot of RNG in here. You need the effect you want, and then you need the double weak spot for more damage. So on my Deagle, I'm running again Precision Style, and this is going to give us attack plus 20%, which is a big damage bonus, and range plus 40%, which is a massive damage bonus. This is what actually makes the Wildfire a heavy hitter. And I'm not kidding when I say that. You can see the clips on screen. Wildfire can hit for massive damage numbers with this calibration blueprint, on top of that extra weak spot damage bonus from the extra 2 calibration effects. So, again, we've covered now both of the calibrations for the weapons. What's the unique effect you need to keep out for on your arm, or look out for on your arm, is hides. Now, hides, if you haven't played Once Human since around December, they added a new system in around Way of Winter, which is the scenario, the snowy scenario they released, where you can effectively add additional multipliers onto your armor that you craft that give you another perk. So, of course, at the start of the video, we were talking about all of our set bonuses. Well, on top of that, you have your walls, your hides. Hides are effectively, again, an additional way to bump up your stats of your build. And again, this is a little bit more of an in-game aspect. I wouldn't worry about this too much if you're early on in the game. If you're getting more into late game to in-game, that's where you can start to worry about hides a little bit more. And I will leave a hides guide in the description as well with the Once Human Atlas, where you can figure out how to get certain hides and how to acquire them, which could help you a lot as well. As I'm not intended on creating a hide guide in this video, as it's its whole own aspect that can get quite complex. I simply want to showcase what hides you want and the general way to get them. So, start off with, when you go to your armor crafting tab and you're crafting your armor blueprints that you got from the wish machine for the first time, that's where you'll add your hide. So for example, the Renegade hood, right? On the bottom, you can tap or select the hide here, and there is literally up to probably 100 different hides you can choose that have up to 100 different effects. Now these all have different animals that you have to skin and farm to get them from, which adds a whole in-game loop in itself that can get quite complex. So I'm simply going to mention what you want to look out for in your Renegade hood is weak spot damage reduction. That's just general weapon damage reduction, which is good for PvE and PvP. It is called Golden Wool. Now this is a little bit more in-game, and if you're not an in-game, I would simply recommend Wool. Wool is very easy to get, but also again not the best option. So if you're early game and you're not quite at the in-game tier, simply craft your armor with Wool. It's going to give you a nice little benefit of a little bit of damage reduction against especially PvE, but when you get to the in-game level, you'll be looking out for Golden Wool. What Golden Wool does is it gives you damage reduction that fluctuates between 1 and 10% every second. So of course this has the potential to be twice as good as just normal wool, but it could also be worse depending on the RNG. So it's an RNG perk that you can add to your armor, but it's needed and it can be fantastic. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you get Golden Wool? Golden Wool comes from tamed, I think it's deer, or no, goats, tamed goats. And again, I'm going to have a full guide to taming goats and getting Golden Wool in the description, because it is a whole complex system in itself that I need to leave to its own guide. And it's made by a fantastic YouTuber. I'll leave him linked in that description there, because getting Golden Wool, again, is its own whole process. So with that said, Golden Wool is going to give you simple damage reduction that fluctuates and is your best option. Your simple option is Wool, and Wool simply is just acquired by farming goats. If you want a location to farm goats and you're on Prismverse, Manibus, or Evolution's Cool, simply anywhere around Red Sands or Blackfell is when you will be able to encounter goats and farm them and skin them and get wool. So that's really easy and nice and easy to get. Just look up in the Red Sandy area and you should be able to find an abundance of goats everywhere. That'll be also give you an abundance of wool. So we've discovered discussed what wool you're looking out for in your headpiece. What wool do you want in your chest piece? Let's just say we're crafting with the Renegade jacket. We go to the deer hide. What can we put on here that would be beneficial? Now, I usually just go with wolfskin. Wolfskin is much like goats that are in abundance all over the sandy area of the map in both Evolution's Cool, Prismverse, and Manibus, right? So you're just going to go up to a wolf, farm the wolf, or skin the wolf, and it will give you wolfskin. Wolfskin is going to give you plus 15 stamina. So that's going to allow you to dodge more and sprint more, which is obviously a fantastic, nice little bonus perk to have. So ultimately, the in-game solution is going to be the Wasteland Wolfskin, which is easier to get once again through farming and taming, or just getting very lucky farming wolves. It's also an RNG drop, but in my opinion, the easy way to go about it is simply just getting Wolfskin. That's an early game way, or an early game thing to do. At a late game level, at an in-game level, you want to be looking out for that Wasteland Wolf skin, which is either RNG from farming a lot of wolves or taming wolves and getting it as a skin or a drop from skinning them. And again, taming has its own whole video in the description made by a fantastic creator. That best in slot hide does give you more benefits than just the wolf skin, which I quickly want to mention. Instead of getting plus 15 stamina, you're getting plus 20, so you're getting a little bit more, and you're getting an additional perk of sprint speed plus 5%, which is actually really strong, but again, it's a lot harder to get, and I wouldn't worry about it until in-game. At an early game level, you'll do completely fine with wolfskin. Now the pants, let's say hypothetically we're doing the Renegade pants. For the hide, we're going to be doing the exact same thing as the top. We're going to be going for either wolfskin at an early game level, or at an in-game level, Wasteland wolfskin through animal taming or RNG. So again, just skin a shitload of wolves or tame wolves and hopefully get Wasteland wolfskin. That's the easy way to put it for pants and top. So you get a extra 40% stamina and extra 10% sprint speed with both of those stats combined, which is actually really strong. Now the gloves, it actually doesn't matter unless there's a certain one you're looking for. You can look through them on the hide for gloves when you're crafting it. It's all just gathering related stuff. Yield boost, herb yield plus 15%, you know, logging, meat yield. It doesn't really matter in my opinion. You can go with absolutely whatever you feel like is going to be beneficial to you perk wise for PvE gathering. A lot of people go for mining yield or meat yield. Meat yield can be quite good, but it's not to be too worried about here at a build guide. For the bingo build guide, again, there's no stat boosts that are going to help us on the glove hide. Now, there will be stat boosts that help you in general gameplay, and I recommend reading through them or watching a separate guide related to that, especially that taming and hide guide that I'll leave in the description. Now, for shoes, there's two different options I'm going to give you. There is deer hide, which is plus 6% sprint speed, which I actually enjoy doing, or the most important one is the Crocodile Bay wolfskin. Oh, sorry, the Coastal Bay crocodile skin. Jeez, what a mouthful. And that's going to give you plus 12% roll speed. This is going to make you roll lightning fast alongside a consumable I will mention later on in the video that's going to make you roll even faster. Rolling fast is very strong in PvP, but can also be quite useful and nice to play with in PvE as well, and is a preferred option a lot of people go with when it comes to PvE. Now there is another option, a third option effectively, that you can go with on the hide for the shoes. That is the golden wool. Once again, taming goats or getting lucky with goats, you know, skinning tamed goats and getting golden wool is going to give you an even stronger roll speed that fluctuates, much like that fluctuation meter on our headpiece, except this time we're going to get a fluctuating roll speed. I personally don't like this one, and it's kind of weird having an ever-changing roll speed. I prefer just a flat 12%, but effectively golden wool is going to allow you to have a roll speed that fluctuates between 10 and 25% every second. And again, this is achieved by taming goats and skinning them and hopefully getting it right. So again, look out for this. It is a great option. A lot of people go for it, and is one of my general recommendations for in-game. At an early game level, again, you can either go for crocodile skin, which is crocodile hide, which is what I pretty much go for. And I actually quickly will mention where to get crocodile hide. So crocodile hide roll speed 8%, a really good spot on Evolution's Cool, Prison vs Clash, or Manibus, is all the way at the bottom of the map. There's this POI called the Harborside. At the top of the Harborside, there's almost a swampy, drowned out town, and there's going to be a lot of coastal crocodiles here. Those are the exact crocodiles you want to farm to get that blue hide for an early game roll speed bonus. And I think we're on to our last hide here, which I believe is the mask. Now, the mask, I think we'll just go with, yeah, Renegade Mask. That's not actually what we're going for, but Renegade Mask, the hide you want to pick is weak spot damage. Weak spot damage early game is just going to be wolf skin, so the exact same thing that you're going to be applying to your top and your pants. It gives you a stand bonus, but at an in-game level, you want the grassland wolf skin, which is earned by taming wolves and skinning them, and or just getting lucky and killing lots of wolves, just like the crocodile hide and the, I think it was the glove hide, no, not the glove hide, the head hide. We just need to get lucky, or tame animals. Taming animals, again, I'll have the whole guide in the description. But yeah, that's, I think, wrapping up hides, and as like an in-game level aspect where you can enhance your stats even further. Again, early game, you can just craft your armor and not worry about it. It's a very technical aspect, but when you get into more speed running, farming good mods, you might want these small buffs that add up a lot. You know, plus 40 stam, plus 10% sprint speed, plus 20% roll speed. It adds up. All these small little perks add up, and it's very good to use them all when you can get them, rather. Don't worry about getting them straight away, but when you can get them, I would recommend them. Now, of course, I think you probably learned this while leveling up, is you want to calibrate your weapons to plus 10. I quickly want to mention order of calibration if you're playing this scenario for the first time. I highly recommend calibrating your calibrating your weapons, both your sniper and your pistol to 10 first, and then calibrating your armor. And why I say this is the armor calibrated is only going to give you HP bonuses for the bingo build. Now, elemental builds, which I'm not covering here, a lot of other creators probably will do that. I might do elemental builds later down the road, or revisit them later down the road. They do scale with armor calibration, but bullet-based builds such as the bingo, which is today's video, is not impacted by armor calibration. But the weapon calibration itself is, of course, going to largely scale your weapon damage. That's why I don't worry about calibrating armor until like I have all the resources free to do so. It's just going to give you more HP, more survivability. Maybe you want that though, and I of course recommend getting it eventually. to have more HP, but I wouldn't worry about it straight away. So, now that we've covered at an hour long so far, we've covered our weapons, our weapon mods, our weapon calibrations, our weapon accessories, we've covered our weapon sets, or sorry, we've covered our armor sets, our key armor, our armor mods, and we've also covered our armor hides that are going to give us extra stats. We can finally jump onto the Cradle. The Cradle, I quickly want to mention, changes depending on the scenario and the scenario difficulty you play. So take this as a suggestion and more or less, I guess, logical way of thinking, and how I say it is, if it sounds like it works for the bingo build, you most likely want to run it. And what I mean by that is, for example, anti-phase, which isn't on novice servers, which you might be playing on if you're a new player, will just be called like bonus sniper damage or sniper something. I forgot the exact term. But simply read what it says it does. So for example, anti-phase, or if you're on a novice server, it'll have a sniper icon and it should say extra damage to snipers 15%, right? That's all you need to know. So if it sounds like it works for the weapon you're using, in our case we're using a sniper, then we probably want to put it in our Cradle, right? So thinking in this logical process, let's actually do process of elimination, right? And just put you in the sort of idea of how I think, right? So again, depending on the scenario you play, there's going to be different Cradles, and that's why it makes it hard for me as a build guide YouTuber to mention all the different Cradles, is because I don't have a character on all the different scenarios, so I can't just showcase the best Cradle for all of the different options. So I want to sort of go through process of elimination. Let's see. Anti-coherence. When using pistols, plus 15% damage. That sounds like one we probably want to run for our wildfire, for our sidearm, right? So we will put that one on. Next up, anti-void. When using rifles, shotguns, or heavy weapons, plus 15% damage. Now, we don't have any of those weapon types, so we probably want to skip that one. Now, anti-phase. When using sniper rifles, SMGs, or crossbows, plus 15% weapon damage. We absolutely want to run that one. And then resilience. When your sanity is below 30%, damage received from deviants is reduced by 30%. I'm undecided on this one. Let's just leave this one for now and come back to it if we have room for it, because as you might notice, we have a limited number of Cradle slots. These unlock on Prisonverse based on level. If you're on a Evolutions Cool, Manibus, or Way of Winter, these unlock based on the monoliths you complete for memory. So keep that in mind, and then we'll go over to the next one here. Rapid Aid. Medicine usage cooldown, minus 30% when HP is below 40%, and medicine usage speed plus 30%. That also is one I'm undecided on. Let's come back to it later. Tactical combo. This one I believe is on a lot of scenarios. Weapon damage plus 15% for 4 seconds after switching weapons or reloading. This sounds pretty good. I think this is a beneficial one to run. We're just going to get bonus damage after switching weapons or reloading, and that seems like a pretty easy one to have upkeep on, right? So we'll put that one on. Status enhancement. Status being elemental weapon types. Increased by 15% for 3 seconds after hitting a weak spot. That doesn't sound beneficial to us because we don't have any elemental weapons, so we'll probably skip on that one. Deviant energy defense. Summoning or handling deviations, which are our little Pokemons that we have, and that'll have its own section later on in the video, will grant a shield equal to 30% of max HP. That sounds pretty good. You know, we're going to get a shield, a little bit of protection upon using our deviation. Maybe we will use that one. Let's put that one on. That sounds pretty ideal. Energy surge. Every 8 seconds at night between 9 PM and 3 AM, deviations recover 1 deviant power. I'm undecided on that one. I don't think that sounds too good. It sounds too niche for my build, right? Next up, we've got chaotic thoughts. When you have a whim, which is a either negative or bonus effect on your character, damage reduction and damage against deviants plus 10%. This could be really good for Lunar Oracle servers, right? For hard mode servers. So maybe we'll put that one on. That sounds pretty beneficial. I think we could do some increased damage with that. Now, you're sort of seeing the way I'm processing things, right? I don't want to leave you guys on here for too long, but it sort of goes in that way of, if it sounds like it works, it is good. If you're undecided, come back to it at the end if you still have a slot for it. So prioritize ones that are simply bonus damage. That would be my order of elimination. If it's bonus damage, run it. If it's an effect that you find might be useful, like a utility effect, leave it for now and come back to it if you still have slots. So I'm going to quickly run through this. This one is for bounce builds, we don't use that. For elemental builds, we don't use that. Steady hand, this I believe is worded differently on a novice server where it does affect bingo builds, but on a Lunar Oracle server, which I'm on, it doesn't affect bingo builds. So I don't want to run this, but read through it on your server, and if it sounds like it works, you want to run it. And then Mark Strike, weak spot damage plus 20% against targets marked by the bullseye. Oh, that's a no-brainer, right? And then Robust, that's for melee builds. What have we got? Extreme Freezing. We can see that that's for an elemental build. Blazing Detonation, we can see that's for a burn build. Probably don't want to run that. Invincible Strike. This looks like it's for a shrapnel build. We're also not using a shrapnel build, so we probably want to leave that one out. Another bounce perk. An explosive unstable bomber perk. We probably don't want to run that either. What else have we got? Heavy Strike, Fortress Warfare. Yeah, that doesn't really pertain to our build either. Transient Impact, yeah. Dealing power surge damage, yeah, not really related to us. Bouncy Hunter. First marking a target grants attack, so that's extra damage. And we get attack by marking a target, so that does sound relevant to us, right? So we will put that one on. What else have we got? Fast Pursuit, Fast Gunner. Yeah, we don't really have any Fast Gunner elements on our build, so we probably wouldn't run that either. Brawl Boost. After dealing melee damage gain, 5% damage reduction and 5% movement speed. Yeah, we're not really going to be using our melee weapon too much. So, after reading through all of our Cradle perks, we've come out with one free slot. What does that mean and what should we put there? Now, what did we skip on? We thought either Resilience or we thought, was it Rapid Aid or Energy Surge? Now, out of these three, in my opinion, I think Resilience sounds like the best one, but up to you. You could run what you think is more beneficial to you, like Rapid Aid maybe. But I think Resilience, getting extra damage or reducing damage, sorry, when we're below 30%, especially on a Lunar Oracle server, sounds like a pretty good Cradle perk. And that's sort of my process of elimination, my logical thinking behind the Cradle. And again, I think I've said this a few times now. If it sounds good, run it. So that is our Cradle done and complete. At an hour and 7 minutes, we've got a few more important features to talk about. That being our deviation and, of course, our food and our drink that we run for our buffs. So, going on to the, I guess, deviation here is there's really two options, the way I see it. Especially for this build is, most importantly, the Lone Wolf's Whisper. The Lone Wolf's Whisper is a dog that was summoned by your side. And when you choose a target with it, it will just give you bonus damage straight up. So, for example, if I summon the Lone Wolf's Whisper in a boss fight to attack the boss, that boss is going to be marked, and I'm going to be doing 32.4% bonus damage to it, which is quite a large damage bonus, and why it makes it so strong. And this scales with your skill and activity rating, so I have a very weak and low-end Lone Wolf Whisper in the Cradle here, but if you have a really good one, you're going to be doing even more damage. I can't remember how high it goes. I think it might be 40% with a 5.5. I would have to double check those numbers, but with a 5.5 skill rating and activity rating, you would get a longer lasting deviation, and you would also get a more or a high damage increase bonus, up to I think 40% from memory. There are certain traits you want to look out for. On my Lunar server, you can only get this on Lunar Oracle servers. I get a extra 5% damage bonus, and that's a 1.5% when I'm below sanity, which is quite nice. I enjoy using this a lot on Lunar Oracle servers, but just keep in mind that there are certain perks that will be bad and good. Cheer Up 2, max mood 40%, that's pretty solid. And then deviant power recovery speed minus 5%. So you really want to not pick up deviations that have, I guess, negative mood or like bringing the team down, I think it was called. There's a really bad one. You don't want that. I don't think I have any of those deviations on me, but effectively there are certain traits that you don't want, and there's certain traits that you don't want. Ultimately, if you're just trying to get a baseline, a Lone Wolf without any traits is a good way to start off with, right? But then you can work on getting a good Lone Wolf with traits. So where do you get the Lone Wolf, though? One of the best PvE damage deviants or deviations. It comes from the Monolith of Thirst, which is the Shadow Hound. This is in the same location across both Evolution's Cool, Manibus, and Prison vs. Clash. On Way of Winter, it's different. Hover over the monolith icons and it should say which one is the Shadowhound. I believe Shadowhound is in the Way of Winter. It is just in a different monolith, right? So again, that Shadowhound, that's going to drop your dog deviation. Effectively is what I call it, a Shadowhound, right? Doggish like deviation. And that's again summoning that. We've got a different dog here, but the other dog that we have won't let me summon it. It's not going to let me auto summon it. Okay. But that is one of the best PvE deviations. Now it's summoning it. He's a little bit late to the party, isn't he? He's a really cool looking deviation, by the way. This is an exclusive style you can only get on Lunar Oracle tagged servers, which is a big reason why a lot of people join them. There's a lot of cool stuff you can get. You can only get on the Lunar Oracle, which is like a hard mode server. Anyways, with that said, we can jump onto the consumables. And actually, no, we'll leave a quick little side note here. Is the festering gel. This is one of my favorite casual PvE deviations that you'll get really early on. This comes from the Ravenous Hunter. A lot of you probably already have this if you've been playing the game. It is quite literally just an AoE shield that'll pop up and heal you. It is one of my favorite things to use in Lunar Oracle as well when I'm just casually chilling. And that's where I really don't like the new dog deviation. It is so loud. Okay, I'm gonna need you to be quiet, sir. So anyways, as I was saying, the festering gel, which you get early on, is a really nice deviation to use that I often still use a lot. And you can get exclusive styles of this guy too, which is really cool. So I've got like a blue one, and in this radius, he's just going to give me a nice AoE shield bonus that also restores sanity, which is quite nice. So now we can jump onto the food effects, or the food bonuses that I go with, which, being in my inventory as well, is the drink we can quickly start off with is iced tea. Iced tea, alongside, if you recall, our hide on our armor giving us increased roll speed, we also get more roll speed on this drink. If you look at the effect here from Drink's Swift Sip, we get roll speed plus 25% and movement speed plus 20% for 2 seconds after rolling. What that means is if I drink it here, I roll, I'm going to run faster and roll faster for 2 seconds. And this exponentially scales, right? I'm getting really fast at rolling. Of course, it's going to chew through my stamina and I'm eventually going to have to reset it, but it can stack up and become really nice to use, which is one of my favorite things about it. So that is the drink I would recommend, and that's really easy to make. You really only need ice cubes, purified water, and then bellflower, which is pretty much an abundance. Bellflower is going to enhance the effect of the dish, which is why I recommend it. Bellflower is everywhere. I can actually even just go show it. Bellflower is like a blue flower that is in the open world, not the red one. But there might be some down here if I open my scope here. Oh no, it seems like render distance is not doing me justice. We'll just go for a little bit of a run. Also, if you're on your bike and you didn't know, you can do some pretty fun tricks with it when you get good at it, such as 180 spins. Anyways, getting off the sidetrack there. There should be some blue flowers. Yeah, so these are the bellflowers on the open world. Pick those, and that's one of the core ingredients for the iced tea. Sir, leave me alone. I guess we can probably like, yeah. No, we whiffed that. We ignore those. I'm blaming that on recording delay. Anyways, jumping back onto it. Once we pick up the bellflower ingredient, we can come back to our base with our purified water, which we can just get from a water purification system, which is pretty easy to set up. There's a bunch of guides on YouTube for water purification. I'm assuming a lot of you might know how to do that already. If you don't, just throw a little water purification search into YouTube. I'm sure a guide will come up. The last ingredient for an iced tea is ice cubes. How do you get ice cubes? Where the hell does an ice cube come from? It comes from your fridge. Your fridge, you put purified water in, and it's going to spit out ice cubes. You can withdraw some, so you don't need to withdraw them all, which is really nice. And yeah, you'll take the ice cubes, you'll take your bellflower, and then you'll take your purified water, and boom, you've got an iced tea. You can also get bonus effects from specializations called Brain Freeze, which makes it last really long. This is a perk that I usually always go for because I need to worry less about drinking and yeah, it also increases the effect magnitude, which I don't think is relevant to roll speed. I might be wrong, but from memory, the bunch of testing, the effect magnitude is effectively just the, I can't quite remember, but it's not going to affect roll speed. This is all you need to know. But the brain freeze, the dish duration part, is one of my favorite things. A part of Iced Tea, or for Iced Tea, from Iced Tea. It's getting on an hour 14 minutes now. I'm starting to slow my words because I've been talking for so long. Holy shit. So, with that said, we've got iced tea. What is the food we're going to use? There's going to be 3 different options I recommend for you. There's going to be the canned... where is it? Where is it? The canned something here. It's got to be in here somewhere. Yeah, the canned assorted fruit, or the assorted canned fruit. The assorted canned fruit at a baseline is just going to give you increased weak spot damage by 25% when your sanity is above 80%. Why I recommend this one is it's really easy to get early game. It's very easy to make. All you need is deviated beetroot, coconut, and aluminium ingots for the can. Coconut, if you want to know where to get coconut, is there's a bunch of coconut trees alongside the coastline. You can physically see the coconuts in the trees. Just look up into the tree and then chop the tree down and you'll get a few coconuts from it, which is really easy, really nice to get. And then the rest of the ingredients, the deviated beetroot. If you want to get beetroot seeds, there's a bunch of beetroots that spawn around the coastline, or the, I guess, the stream line of the Myers Market town or settlement. Simply around the edges here, you'll have a bunch of beetroot you can collect. You can then switch world and go and collect even more beetroot and get a bunch of beetroot seeds. And then you can go and plant those in your garden at your base. And you can hopefully get some deviated beetroot out of that. Again, I'm not going to do a full gardening guide in here. There's a bunch of gardening guides on YouTube that I'm sure will help you through that more efficiently than I will. But at a baseline, that is how you get deviated beetroot, or an easy way to get beetroot, and also how to get coconut, and then of course aluminium ingot. You just make your smelter, so and so. And that's how you get assorted canned fruits. Now, for the recommended food though, this is what I'd recommend at an early game level. For the recommended food is the mixed fried hot dog. This is going to give you the biggest damage bonus because it's not just weak spot damage, it is the general multiplier for your build, which is enhanced marking mixed fried hot dog. What enhanced marking does is, if you can see and read the core effect here, use to increase damage by 20% towards enemies affected by the bullseye. So it's not just increasing your weak spot damage, it's just increasing your damage in general. So if you don't hit the weak spot for whatever reason, or you are just dealing general damage, no matter what, it's going to scale your damage by 20% on bullseye targets. That is why mixed fried hot dog is the best option for this build, but it's a little bit trickier to get because you need deviated mushroom, which in my opinion is a little bit more annoying to get. Deviated mushroom, if you are going for it though, I can give you a source to get mushroom seeds and grow mushrooms, is located all the way at the bottom of the map in caves. If you look down here, just to the right of Sunbury and above Sunbury Middle School, there's a whole cave system that goes through underneath this sort of rocky area here, and in there's a bunch of mushrooms to pick. Upon picking those mushrooms, you'll be able to get seeds. That is my mushroom spot, my secret source spot. So hopefully we don't see too many people contesting my mushroom spot now, but it is what it is. That being the best option, the third option that you can go for on the food is Stardust Ratatouille. Stardust Ratatouille is a movement option. This isn't going to increase your damage, and if you're trying to min-max your damage for speedrunning or PvP, I wouldn't recommend this, but if you like to move fast, if you're doing silo speedruns specifically, Stardust Ratatouille can be a really fun option. This in general just increases your movement speed by 20% and reduces your stamina consumption when sprinting. Really fun option. You move incredibly fast. If you stack that on with the golden wool hide buffs that we had, where we get increased sprint speed, yeah, it could be a lot of fun. To make that, all you need is salt, which you get from seawater and then purifying that at your kitchen stove, and corn oil, which you get from purifying corn, or sorry, I guess refining corn at your advanced stove. I can also give a corn spot. Why not? I'm sharing all the secrets. I want you guys to eat well. So on the far right, where is it? I believe it is down here. Yep. So at Cape Manor, there is a really nice cornfield spot right there. Maybe like 5 to 12 corn crops that you can pick, and then you can boost back up to the teleportation tower here, switch world, and go and pick up that corn again. I'm sharing all the secrets, but that's what it's about. I want to help you guys out. So upon doing that, you can then make the corn oil, which is all the way down the bottom here. So you purify that corn to corn oil. You can come back up here to make Stardust Ratatouille. And then again, you would use deviated cabbage if you want a good... Okay, here we go. If you want a good cabbage picking spot to get cabbage seeds for your garden, right at the tallgrass inn on the far left of the map, there is going to be up top, there's going to be, I think, a dairy or something like that, a Subway. It's like a mock-up of a Subway. It's called like Sandwich Way or something like that, I can't remember. There's going to be a garden around the back of that house where there's going to be a bunch of cabbage you can pick up and get seeds from. And since it's really close to the teleporter, you can do the switch world trick, go back up and loot the cabbage again. Really nice and easy, fun thing to do. And then again, you can grow your cabbage out and hopefully get deviated cabbage. So that is all of the consumables. We've covered the deviations, we've covered all of the armor, the weapons, the blueprints, the calibrations, the mods. And I think that pretty much wraps up the entire video. Again, I think we might have left out the melee weapon. So the long axe is just going to give you a damage buff when you proc a heavy attack on it. And what I mean by that is when you run the long axe and you do a slam like this, it's going to do something called a Fortress Warfare buff. And this Fortress Warfare buff is going to give you a damage bonus for a little bit, like 5 seconds. And in the Cradle, there's a specific perk you run called the... I can't remember which one it is here. It is the Steady Hand, yep. So, as you can see, when you're in Fortress Warfare, gain a weak spot and weapon damage bonus of 10 and 25%. Running that, doing that heavy axe, heavy attack, and then switching to our bingo, that Cradle buff for Fortress Warfare will work on our bingo or wildfire for 10 seconds. So it's a short little duration buff if you really want to max your damage, but I always leave it with a quick note on this, I guess, damage technique, is that while you might see a higher damage number, that time you've spent proccing that buff, doing that slow axe attack like that, could have just been spent shooting another bullet or two in your bingo, which would have equaled the same amount of damage. That's why it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the people that really do the axe buff is just so you can see high damage numbers in a YouTube video. I don't really recommend bothering with it. It's a big fat waste of time. Just shoot more bullets. It will equal the same amount of damage, right? So, I believe that is the ultimate bingo guide. And I think we can wrap it up here. I really enjoyed making this, especially as a newcomer experience. And if you're interested, not only that, I guess one more thing. If you're interested in the PvP build for this, I will leave that in the description. The Bingo PvP kit is on nwdex.info. Fantastic website. I can't remember who it's made by, but I'll leave it in the description. And you can easily reference exactly what you need for the PvP build guide. Not much is different. The only thing that's changed is 3 pieces of armor to a different set, and you'll be able to see that in that build link in the description. But I really want to give a baseline introduction to the PvE kit in this video and talk about all of the niche different aspects you can expect to need or might want in this build, or my version of the build. And again, this build has not failed me. It's still one of the best performers in the game, and I absolutely love it. I always come back to this build. I try a new build, and I find myself right back on the bingo. So I hope you guys enjoyed giving an in-depth explanation to how this build works. It would be much appreciated if you could like or subscribe. It means a lot to me. A lot of effort goes into these videos, and I actually don't use a script, but I do a lot of thinking. It's a big, I guess, free flow script that I use, and it takes a lot of time, especially not mumbling up my words for an hour straight. It can be pretty daunting, and I hope that the effort shows through and you guys got something relevant information-wise out of the video. And with the yapping wrapped up there, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.